The 1990s was the decade of managing a war in the Middle East, a new era of children's television programming, also the era of the unstoppable Chicago Bulls, the rise of rap and hip-hop, pop music, and Disney animated films, and presidential scandal. Now let's get into the 1990s. 1990. We start the decade with George H.W. Bush as President of the United States. In January, he gave his first State of the Union address to the nation. Also in January, the first African-American governor, Douglas Wilder, was sworn in. He was elected governor in the state of Virginia. In February, boxer Mike Tyson lost his heavyweight championship by being knocked out by Buster Douglas in the 10th round. In April, the Hubble Space Telescope was launched into space through the Space Shuttle Discovery.
2, 1, and liftoff of the Space Shuttle Discovery with the Hubble Space Telescope, a window on the universe.
In May, Microsoft Windows 3.0 was released, and the user interface allowed for clickable icons, unlike previous versions. In June, the Universal Studios Florida theme park opened to the public. It featured various rides and attractions. One of those attractions was Nickelodeon Studios, which housed a production studio for Nickelodeon Network. Also in June, the Detroit Pistons won the NBA championship by beating the Portland Trail Blazers.
Pete, you've got a great team. Congratulations to you, the Pistons in the city of Detroit, and all of these very nice people around you.
In August, Iraq invaded Kuwait, primarily over disputes regarding Kuwait's alleged slant drilling in Iraq's oil field, as well as to cancel Iraq's large debt to Kuwait from the recently ended Iran-Iraq War. This invasion would start the Gulf War. In September, the Fox Kids programming block debuted on Fox, starting with shows like Attack of the Killer Tomatoes, Peter Pan and the Pirates, and Bobby's World. Also in September, The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, starring Will Smith, premiered on NBC, with its catchy theme song that every Gen Xer and millennial knows by heart. Also, the movie Goodfellas was released in theaters, starring Ray Liotta, Joe Pesci, and Robert De Niro. This, in my opinion, is one of the best crime movies of all time. I've watched this movie countless times over the years, and it never gets old. In November, President Bush signed the Omnibus Budget Reconciliation Act of 1990, which increased individual income tax rates, although George Bush promised no new taxes in his 1980s campaign.
To them, read my lips.
Also in November, Home Alone released in theaters, starring Macaulay Culkin as Kevin McAllister, a young child trying to defend his home from burglars. Popular songs of the year: Hold On by Wilson Phillips, Can I Kick It by Tribe Called Quest, Poison by Belle Biv DeVoe, and You Can't Touch This by MC Hammer, which had grown men out here wearing hammer pants. 1991. In January, the US Congress passed a resolution authorizing military force to liberate Kuwait, which would start Operation Desert Storm, where the United States would begin airstrikes against Iraq. In February, Saddam Hussein, president of Iraq, announced that they would withdraw from Kuwait. In March, video footage was captured of police beating Rodney King in Los Angeles, California, which in turn sparked racial tension on the national forefront. It highlighted the distrust between Black Americans and US police officers. In June, the Chicago Bulls won the NBA championship by beating the Lakers, and this would be the Bulls' first championship and the start of them dominating basketball in the 90s, with a dominating roster consisting of Scottie Pippen, John Paxson, and of course, the GOAT, Michael Jordan. In July, the movie Terminator 2: Judgment Day was released in theaters, starring Arnold Schwarzenegger, returning as the Terminator Cyborg. This movie was the top-grossing film of the year, gaining over $204 million. In August, Nickelodeon released the shows Doug,
Patty Mayonnaise? This is my buddy Doug Funny.
Rugrats, and The Ren and Stimpy Show. These cartoons will become entertainment staples in the millennial childhood. Another entertainment staple released in August was the Super Nintendo Entertainment System. The initial games that came with the system were F-Zero and Super Mario Land. In October, Governor Bill Clinton of Arkansas announced his running for president of the United States. In November, Disney released Beauty and the Beast, which was a major success. It garnered great reviews for its animation, songs, and fairy tale theme. Popular songs of the year include Love is a Wonderful Thing by Michael Bolton, Summertime by Fresh Prince and Jazzy Jeff, Good Vibration by Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch, and yes, that is Mark Wahlberg. 1992. In January, President Bush delivered his final State of the Union address to the American people. In his speech, he talked about inflation being down, interest rates also going down, and the rising unemployment rate. In February, the Democratic Party presidential primaries began, with its frontrunners Jerry Brown, governor of California, Paul Tsongas, senator of Massachusetts, and Bill Clinton, governor of Arkansas. In April, the 4 LAPD officers accused in the Rodney King beating were acquitted of charges. This would spark the LA riot soon after, which lasted for about a week. In May, Johnny Carson retired from NBC's Tonight Show.
You will like and come back that you'll be as gracious and inviting me into your home as you have been. I bid you a very heartfelt good night.
In June, the Chicago Bulls won the NBA championship for the second year in a row by beating the Portland Trail Blazers. In July, the Democratic National Convention takes place as Bill Clinton is elected as the party's nominee for president and Al Gore for vice president.
In the name of the hardworking Americans who make up our forgotten middle class, I proudly accept your nomination for President of the United States.
In August, the Republican National Convention took place with President George H.W. Bush as the party's nominee and his vice president, Dan Quayle. In October, the animated series The X-Men premiered on Fox Kids. And this cartoon was one of my most fondest memories, waking up early in the morning to watch this show. In November, Disney's Aladdin was released in theaters. Also in November, Bill Clinton won his bid for president, beating the incumbent George H.W. Bush. In December, one of the most classic rap albums of all time was released, and that's The Chronic by Dr. Dre, with hit songs like Let Me Ride, Nothing But a G Thing, and Dre Day. Other popular songs of the year include The Best Things in Life Are Free by Luther Vandross and Janet Jackson, End of the Road by Boyz II Men, and Baby Got Back by Sir Mix-a-Lot. 1993. In January, Bill Clinton was sworn in as President of the United States. And in February, Clinton delivered his first address to Congress, where he talked about spending cuts and also raising taxes. Also in February, the World Trade Center in New York City was bombed by terrorists that parked a van beneath one of the towers with explosives. The bombing killed 6 people and injured thousands more. In April, the movie The Sandlot was released in theaters. The movie is about a kid named Scotty Smalls that moves to a new neighborhood and makes friends with the other kids by playing baseball with them. And if you were a young kid back then, you remember every kid in your neighborhood in school quoting from this movie.
You're killing me, Smalls!
In June, Jurassic Park released in theaters, starring Jeff Goldblum, Laura Dern, and Sam Neill. The movie absolutely took over the summer. It was a groundbreaking story with the state-of-the-art graphics, and everyone was fascinated with the concept of the dinosaurs roaming around the island of Jurassic Park. In August, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers debuts on Fox Kids. It took the United States by storm. Young millennials at the time wanted all the Power Ranger merchandise, like the games, clothing, and toys, especially the Dragon Zord. In December, Bill Clinton signed the North American Free Trade Agreement, or known as NAFTA. The agreement was to promote free trade between Canada, the United States, and Mexico. Popular songs of '93 include Whoop There It Is by Tag Team, Dream Lover by Mariah Carey, and I Will Always Love You by Whitney Houston. 1994. In January, President Clinton delivered his State of the Union address. In February, the album Dookie, yes, that's his name, was released by punk rock group Green Day. The album featured songs like Welcome to Paradise, When I Come Around, and Basket Case. This album helped kick off the punk rock genre. In April, hip-hop artist Nas, who was 20 years old at the time, released his album Illmatic, which is considered one of the greatest hip-hop albums of all time. In June, the Houston Rockets won the NBA championship for the first time in the franchise's history by beating the New York Knicks. Also, the Lion King movie was released in theaters. It's a story about a young lion named Simba that's eager to become king of the pride. This movie had an all-star voice cast consisting of James Earl Jones,
A king's time as ruler rises and falls like the sun.
Jonathan Taylor Thomas,
Well, when I'm king, that'll be the first thing to go.
Jeremy Irons,
You see, I shall never be king.
and Whoopi Goldberg.
I got one. Make mine a club sandwich. What you think?
This movie was the top-grossing film of the year, making over $700 million worldwide. Also in June, the O.J. Simpson police chase was shown on national television. In July, Jeff Bezos founded Amazon, a small internet company that sold books. In October, Pulp Fiction, a movie written by Quentin Tarantino, was released in theaters, starring Bruce Willis, Uma Thurman, John Travolta, and the one and only Samuel L. Jackson. In November, Spider-Man the Animated Series premiered on Fox Kids. This was another cartoon that I remember waking up on early Saturday mornings, pouring a big old bowl of cereal, and turning on the television to watch it. Popular songs of '94 include I Wanna Be Down by Brandy, Regulate by Warren G, and Always by Bon Jovi. 1995. In March, two tragic deaths that rocked the music world took place. First was the rapper Eazy-E from NWA, dying of complications of the AIDS virus.
Year-old rapper died last night in a Los Angeles hospital. He was hospitalized last month for what he thought was asthma and said that he did not know how he contracted AIDS.
And the second tragic death was singer Selena Quintanilla, who was shot by her fan club manager.
Selena was fatally wounded today at a day's end just before noon, rushed to a hospital, into an operating room, but she died about an hour later. Now, as we said, police took the suspect into custody just minutes ago, and there's late word she apparently worked at Selena's clothing store.
In April, another tragedy took place, which was the Oklahoma City bombing. A truck carrying explosives was parked in front of the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building. Around 9 in the morning, the explosives went off and killed over 160 people and injured hundreds more. Perpetrators Timothy McVeigh and Terry Nichols were later caught. In June, the Houston Rockets won the NBA championship for the second year in a row, and also their second franchise win by beating the Orlando Magic. In August, Microsoft released Windows 95, which introduced the taskbar and start button for the program. In September, the PlayStation was released in North America. In October, the Million Man March was held in Washington, D.C. In November, Walt Disney's Pixar released Toy Story, a fully animated film. A story about a group of toys that come to life when humans are not around. It features the voice acting of Tom Hanks.
Really think you're the Buzz Lightyear? Oh, all this time I thought it was an act.
Tim Allen,
Buzz Lightyear to Star Command. Come in, Star Command.
and Annie Potts.
Sure, look at him. He's got more gadgets on him than a Swiss Army knife.
Popular songs of '95 include December by Collective Soul and Excel by Whitney Houston. 1996. In January, the Republican presidential primaries began with frontrunners Bob Dole, Pat Buchanan, and Steve Forbes. In February, rapper Tupac released his album All Eyes on Me, featuring songs like California Love, How Do You Want It, and I Ain't Mad at Ya. In May, the The last episode of The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air aired on NBC Network. After 6 seasons, the show would end. However, its popularity has lasted for decades. In June, the Chicago Bulls won their 4th NBA championship of the 90s by beating the Seattle Supersonics. In August, the Republican National Convention took place, with Bob Dole as the party's nominee for president and Jack Kemp for vice president. In September, Tupac Shakur was shot in a drive-by shooting outside of the MGM Casino in Las Vegas. He died a few days later in the hospital. In October, the presidential debates took place between Bill Clinton and Bob Dole. Also in October, the channel PBS launched the animated show Arthur. In November, Bill Clinton won his second bid for president by beating Bob Dole. Also, Space Jam was released in theaters, starring Michael Jordan and animated characters from Warner Brothers. In December, during the holiday shopping season, a shopping craze for a red plush toy took over the nation, and that was the Tickle Me Elmo craze. When Tickle Me Elmo hit the shelves, a lot of Americans were willing to fight and stampede over each other for the toy.
This may very well be the last Tickle Me Elmo to be found in the Bay Area, but he's already sold, and when we brought him out into the store, we caused a near riot.
Popular songs of the year: Come On Ride the Train by Quad City DJs, Return of the Mac by Mark Morrison, and I Believe I Can Fly by R. Kelly, which was featured in the Space Jam movie. 1997. In January, President Clinton is sworn in for his second term. In March, Notorious B.I.G. was shot in a drive-by shooting in Los Angeles. In June, the Chicago Bulls won their 5th NBA championship by beating the Utah Jazz. Also in June, Disney released the animated movie Hercules in theaters. The story about the Greek mythological hero Hercules. Some of the voice actors include Tate Donovan, James Woods,
What are those?
and Danny DeVito.
They can't keep their hands up.
The movie also had an awesome soundtrack. In August, the animated show South Park premiered on Comedy Central. In September, the website domain Google was registered. However, it wasn't incorporated just yet. In December, the movie Titanic released in theaters, starring Leonardo DiCaprio, Billy Zane, and Kate Winslet. It became one of the highest grossing films of all time. Popular songs of the year include Getting Jiggy With It by Will Smith, Mo Money Mo Problems by Notorious B.I.G. and Puffy, also I'll Be Missing You by Puffy and Faith Evans, a song tributed to the late Notorious B.I.G. 1998. In January, President Clinton denies having an affair with his intern Monica Lewinsky.
I want you to listen to me. I'm going to say this again. I did not have sexual relations with that woman, Miss Lewinsky.
In March, the Academy Awards took place, and the movie The Titanic won a record-tying 11 awards and was nominated for 14 others. And this broadcast had an estimated 57 million viewers, making it the most watched Oscar broadcast in history. In April, Toon Disney was launched, and the first program broadcast was The Sorcerer's Apprentice. In June, the Chicago Bulls won the NBA championship by beating the Utah Jazz, and this will become their 6th championship win in the 90s, and also Michael Jordan's last game as a Bull. In August, President Clinton finally admitted to his relations with Monica Lewinsky in a national televised address.
Indeed, I did have a relationship with Miss Lewinsky that was not appropriate. In fact, it was wrong. It constituted a critical lapse in judgment and a personal failure on my part, for which I am solely and completely responsible.
In September, the company Google was formally incorporated by its founders, Larry Page and Sergey Brin. In October, U.S. Congress began impeachment hearings against President Clinton for lying under oath and obstruction of justice. In November, the Nickelodeon movie The Rugrats was released in theaters. and it became a success by opening at the #1 spot and garnered $36 million in its first week. Also, the song Take Me There by Maya and Blackstreet was the movie's theme song. In December, President Clinton was impeached by the US House of Representatives. Also in December, the movie The Prince of Egypt was released in theaters. The animated story about the biblical prophet Moses freeing his people from Egypt. Popular songs of '98 include No 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 by Destiny's Child, I Want You Back by NSYNC, and The Boy Is Mine by Brandy and Monica. 1999. In January, the Senate trial of President Clinton's impeachment began. In February, Clinton was acquitted by the Senate.
50 senators have pronounced William Jefferson Clinton, President of the United States, guilty as charged. 50 senators have pronounced him not guilty. 2/3 of the senators present not having pronounced him guilty. The Senate adjudges that the respondent, William Jefferson Clinton, President of the United States, is not guilty as charged in the second article of impeachment.
Also in February, rapper Eminem released his second studio album, the Slim Shady LP, which was produced by none other than Dr. Dre. It featured songs like Role Model, Guilty Conscience, and My Name Is. In March, the movie The Matrix was released in theaters, starring Lawrence Fishburne, Carrie-Anne Moss, and Keanu Reeves. In May, Star Wars Episode I: The Phantom Menace was released in theaters. It's the prequel to the original Star Wars films. In July, the animated series SpongeBob SquarePants made its debut on Nickelodeon, and it would grow to become one of the most popular kid shows amongst millennials and Gen Z. In November, Toy Story 2 was released in theaters, with the returning voice cast of Tim Allen and Tom Hanks. Also in November, another classic rap album was released, called 2001, by none other than Dr. Dre, with classic songs like Still Dre, The Next Episode, and Forgot About Dre. And let this be a reminder to never, ever forget about Dre. Now on to popular songs of '99. No Scrubs by TLC, Baby One More Time by Britney Spears, All Star by Smash Mouth, and a song that would change the course of history, and that was Back That Ass Up by Juvenile, Manny Fresh, and Lil Wayne. The reason this song is so prolific is for what it has done to the club and party scene. The second the beat drops, everyone knew what time it was, and still knows what time it is. No matter how educated you've become, how far up the corporate ladder you've climbed, how much money you've made, or how much of an upstanding member of your community you've become, once Back That Ass Up comes on, you know what to do. This song has transcended race, religion, and culture. This song has... oh, I got carried away, sorry about that. I hope you enjoyed this video about the 90s. Please like and subscribe for more content. And this concludes another episode of The Voice of Rhino.